Welcome to this week's edition of Arkansas Money Talk, brought to you by the team at Retire Path Wealth. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and joining me in the studio today is Dale Colclaser. He is the president of Wealth Management at Retire Path Wealth, and Mark Smalling, who is the president of Insurance Management. It's great to be back with you. How are you this week?
Oh, great. Doing well.
Well, good. I know you've been very busy meeting with folks who've been calling from the show and coming in to get their own Discover Your Retire Path planning from you guys. It's awesome.
That's
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I know you've put together another great show for our viewers at home today. One of the most common questions that retirees ask, or people who are nearing and preparing for retirement ask, is, will I outlive my money? I find that that's just the most common question I've heard as I've traveled the country as a financial educator. So if you've ever asked yourself that question, you're not going to want to miss today's episode. We're going to be talking all about how to make sure that you don't outlive your money. And I know that it really comes down to the fact that we are living longer than we ever have before. And you mentioned that there was an article you recently read from MIT, and I wanted to start with that and just hear your thoughts on that article about longevity.
Right. Thanks, Kristen. Yeah, this article that was recently came out of MIT was a study they were doing about longevity. And classically, when we think about retirement planning, it's really about savings and time is how we look at it. And we don't really take into account oftentimes how much longer we're living.
Yes.
And the effects that has on everything else. And so they looked at things in a rather unique way in the article.
So yeah, dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, basically one of the things they looked at is that so many times the major concern that people have when they get to retirement is what if I have a healthcare issue? Because that's always been, where it's kind of been drilled into us that that's the most expensive thing that will come across in retirement.
Right.
And what they realized is that's actually the third most expensive thing.
Oh, wow. That's shocking. I mean, when you think about it, because I think that's typically people think healthcare. So what was number one and number two?
That's right. Number one was simply housing.
Okay.
And number two, transportation. It's so often when people come in and we have the discussion and we're working through what cash flow needs are, they say, oh, well, gosh, if I have my house paid off, everything's fixed. Well, that's very possibly a great factor, but then so many times they say, oh, and I've had my car paid off as well. And it's like, well, how often do you trade vehicles? Because it's a simple thought process is going into retirement, this is the last vehicle I'll have to purchase, which is just not realistic.
Well, and I think that's partly because, as we've talked about, most people, this is a very different retirement landscape than what our parents, our grandparents experienced. It used to be people retired at 62, maybe passed away as early as 65. But for today's modern retiree, we could easily live another 30, even almost 40 years after retirement. I mean, that's a whole working career lifetime if you think about it.
It is. If you're 65 years old and relatively good health, you have a 50% chance of living to 85.
Right. Yeah.
And then if you're married or have another person that you're personally attached to, the statistics say you'll live even longer than that.
Right, up to 95, I think I've read, right? So when you all are engaging in enhanced planning for your clients, how far do you run out those projections for them when you're trying to develop this income plan to make sure that someone doesn't outlive their money? Is there a certain age that you run the plan to?
Our base date is 92, and then we adjust from there based on what each individual tells us, with family history, with health, and those different types of things. Because the one major key with financial planning we have is we have to make sure they can't run out of money. We got to make that. We got to get that correct in advance. That's not something we can repair 10, 15 years down the road through a plan. And so we've got to make sure that we've definitely compensated for longevity.
Absolutely. So at what point do you start this longevity planning process with clients? What's the ideal age that someone, if they're watching the show, they need to come in, they need to start this process in order to create this income plan to account for their longer life expectancy?
That's an absolutely wonderful question, because so many times people want to wait till, I'm ready to make the decision next week, and then I need to go flip on all these switches. And let's start at that point. But Kristen, realistically, 5 years or earlier is really the time frame to begin to start, because if there are changes that can be made to improve a situation, now we have time to affect change.
Right.
And so realistically, we want to begin the planning process 5 to 6 years before retirement or even earlier.
I've heard that referred to as the retirement red zone. Right?
That's a great
Absolutely.
term.
Yeah, within 5 to 10 years before retirement. Absolutely.
Right. Well, in the MIT article, it also talks about things in a little bit different way. It's asking these questions about longevity, but in a unique way. They're asking, so who's going to take you to go get your ice cream cone?
Right. How are you going to get an ice cream cone?
How are you going to get an ice cream cone? You know, those are things that we don't think about. We take those for granted, that we can go hop in our car.
Right.
And the majority of seniors in this country, 70+%, don't live in areas where there is readily available public transportation.
Absolutely.
And so how are they going to get there?
Right.
You know, so that's one of the questions that they asked in the article. And then the second question they ask is, who are you going to go have lunch with? So they talk about we always talk about people's investment portfolio, but what about your social portfolio?
Yes.
You know, who are your friends, or you have family around? Who are you going to
have
do things
with?
That's
in
exactly
your
right.
later years.
Well,
right.
I think it's one of the things that's not discussed inside the household before a lot of people come in to visit with us about retirement planning is, what will you do to replace the 40 hours that you've been working? What will you be doing for those 40 hours a week while you're in retirement?
And without that social interaction, I mean, studies show that people tend to deteriorate faster, right? I mean, that's the sad reality.
That is absolutely correct.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
And then the third question that they ask is, who's going to change the light bulb, or how you're going to get your light bulb changed?
Interesting. So tell me what the article is explaining with that.
So they're talking about these little things that we don't think about. You know, we don't think anything, even though our wives probably don't like us climbing on ladders. Dell and I both do on occasion. But who's going to climb on the ladder and change your light bulb? Who are going to do these small things that you've been accustomed to doing on your own?
Yeah, so we take for granted that when we are physically healthy, we can do.
Right. And those are all things that cost money. So everything costs money. These days you can't.
Absolutely. No, for sure. And all these things need to be accounted for. And this is what you specialize in doing, is helping folks engage in this enhanced planning process to think about all the aspects and some of the aspects that aren't so readily publicized, if you will, about retirement, right?
That's right, Kristen. And so one of our asks today is if you're one of those that's out there and you've ever wondered, what does my cash flow need to look like? Or you have any questions about what other things should I consider implementing into my retirement plan, or how does it work when I no longer have a paycheck and cash flow needs to start? How do I keep it moving forward? We invite you today to call the number on the screen and ask to get an appointment started, to have the information sent out to you to get your own personal retire path started.
Dale, Mark, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, we are going to take a quick commercial break, but this is an excellent opportunity for you to call that number on the bottom of your screen to get your complimentary Discover Your Retire Path plan from Dale and Mark and the team at Retire Path Wealth. All you need to do is call the number 866-724-3893. You're also welcome to take out your smartphone. Simply scan that QR code in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. That will take you over to a landing page, ask you a few simple questions, and a member of the Retire Path Wealth team will reach out to you to schedule your complimentary appointment that way as well. We have a lot more to cover about this subject of not outliving your money, so stay with us. We'll see you right after this.
As a good saver, you've been putting away money during your working years. Studies find that the biggest fear of retirees is running out of money. Market volatility isn't just the downward movement of stock prices, it's the size and frequency of change. The more dramatic the ups and downs, the higher the volatility. This can put savers who are newly retired or a few years away from being retired at greater risk. Today's generation of retirees is not receiving traditional pensions as our parents or grandparents did. Instead, we have retirement accounts such as 401ks or 403bs. These accounts typically expose your money to market risk. The last thing you want right before retirement is to lose a portion of the money you need for income. But how do you turn these accounts into a retirement income? Is it safe to keep all your retirement money sitting in the stock market? The last thing you want is to lose a portion of the money you need for income due to market loss. By working with a financial professional, you can learn how to turn a portion of your savings into an income stream for life, and income for the life of your spouse if you're married. We all have moments in our lives when we wish we had taken action sooner. Don't let procrastination reign on your retirement parade. Act now before it's too late. Please call our office to set up your no-cost, no-obligation retirement income review today.
Welcome back to Arkansas Money Talk. I'm Kristen Oakley here with Dale Cole-Clazier and Mark Smalling from Retire Path Wealth. We are talking today about this all-important question that most folks are concerned. It's the question that often keeps people up at night. Will I outlive my money? And we don't want you to be bound up with that stress and that worry. So we're unpacking some important things you need to know today about your longevity and planning for retirement. You mentioned in the earlier segment that healthcare, often folks think that that's going to be the most expensive cost. And so my question is, what kind of effect can our health have on this whole discussion of retirement planning? Because none of us know what's going to happen. I mean, some of us have health histories, maybe some of us have some other pre-existing conditions, but none of us know how long we're going to live, right? So how do we plan for this?
Well, that's a question that comes up often, especially people that are concerned about having a long-term care event, some health event in their life, and as we age and our parents age, we start experiencing some of those things, and that's typically when we hear from clients about their own long-term care, is when they're dealing with it with their own loved ones and their own parents.
Absolutely, and they're seeing what's happening and dealing with the effects of that, and
or writing the checks, which is kind of the most important thing. That they see all the money that goes out to fund a long-term care event.
Well, and we've talked before the stat about so much of the care is from loved ones who aren't being compensated. And of course, you want to care for your aging loved ones, but then the people who are doing that are taking a hit because that means time out of the workforce. It means more money. I mean, there's just so much wrapped up into that.
Right. It's definitely something you need to have income planned for. There are so many new tools that are available in the marketplace that have the ability to help to compensate for those or to offer benefits to where income may double for a certain period of time based on certain events that occur. And so it's one of the things that's really important about making sure that you have your portfolio structured for income distribution, which is such the big difference between what accumulation has been at this point as well.
Right.
Because in this point, time is not necessarily always your friend, as it has been while you were accumulating the dollars before you get to retirement and to begin to spend those.
Yeah. Well, talk to me a little bit about the options that are available for folks as they want to plan ahead for long-term care needs in particular.
Well, right. When Dale and I first started in the industry, there were long-term care plans, traditional long-term care plans.
So long-term care insurance plans.
That's correct. Yeah, insurance plans, and those were what was available to take care of that need, and they worked very well, and they're still available today. They just tend to be more expensive than a lot of people. They're kind of shocked when they see how much it actually. Sticker shock from from what it costs. But those are still very valuable plans. We don't use them as much as we did, when we first started in the career.
Well, and some people don't qualify either,
and
right?
They don't.
With
It's
medical
very difficult.
underwriting.
The underwriting for traditional long-term care insurance is very, very strict, and so it's difficult to get. So there's been more of a move towards asset-based long-term care plans.
So explain that and unpack that a little bit.
Right. So oftentimes people, even though they may not have long-term care insurance, they have a long-term care plan in their mind. What it may be is just money sitting in cash in the bank that they have earmarked that if something happens, that's where I'm going to go for it. So if you have cash that's kind of what you have it earmarked for. There are asset-based plans, whether they be an annuity, life insurance that has long-term care benefit, where you actually have a effect of multiplying those dollars to a greater benefit.
So there's just options out there that people need to be exploring and aware of, right?
That's absolutely correct. And again, it's not just a one answer anymore. There are a lot of different tools, and that's one of the benefits of coming in and sitting down with a knowledgeable advisor that has the ability to look at know what your income needs are and then know what options are available to help you work through the pros and the cons of what may be the best choice for you.
Sure. Well, and I think you've seen the stress on families that can happen, right? I think some people, the loved ones, they really want to provide that care. But it is a huge drain on finances. And then I think the flip side is some people might be nervous to buy something like a long-term care insurance plan because they don't even know if they're going to need it.
That's right.
So talk to me about how does one figure that maze out, if you will, of what kind of plan would be best for them?
Well, it all comes down, and that's the reason we try to be holistic in everything that we do. We find out what actually fits their particular situation. If an asset-based plan is not going to work for someone who doesn't have readily available cash, if all their money's tied up in a qualified plan at work, then that's probably not going to be a good option for them at that time. As Dale was mentioning earlier, there are plans that do more than one, what we like to say, do more than $1 worth of work, where you may have an income product, as Dale mentioned earlier, that might double in, for a certain period of time to provide you with that extra cash when you need it.
Or even more prevalent today, Chris, sorry not to interrupt with you, but there's a lot of insurance products now that so many people have always viewed life insurance as a death benefit only option, that there's only a benefit to me as I die, but living benefits have become much more prevalent, where I have the ability to access a very large portion of the death benefit in a policy to utilize for my own personal care while I'm still living.
Well, what I love about Retire Path Wealth is that you all are independent, which means that you are able to look at a variety of products out there and really determine what the best product would be for an individual client. You're not bound to just one insurance carrier or one type of long-term care plan, right?
Right. That's well, because those rates are changing at all times. I mean, you may have an option that you were quoted a year or two ago, and that was the best rate at that time, but now the marketplace has changed, and we have the ability to go out and find what is the best opportunity today, and we're in an ever-changing landscape. I mean, due to the fact that interest rates have been so low for so long, and now they're beginning to rise again, the financial industry, or the financial services industry is very creative. They have the ability to make a lot of tools, as Mark said, that have the ability to do more than one job. And we have the ability to go out and search the entire marketplace. We're not limited to what some big box provider says these are the only options that you have the ability to access.
Well, I know that is something you love to do, right? Is to put this puzzle together for folks and really look at all the pieces and see how they come together. Well, I know you have no shortage of client stories. Is there anyone that comes to mind that you've been able to help recently in this space specifically of helping them make sure that they're not going to outlive their money?
We have had some in recent, and they've mainly been asset-based plans that we've used. But we see it on a regular basis. We just had somebody come in that was retiring early because they were taking care of their parents, and they were interested, and that we see quite often. That's something that, as you were mentioning earlier, people retiring before they thought they were going to be because of that, and and interested in not being a burden on their family and their children as they go forward. And so we really think that's important, is to plan out so you're not.
For sure. Yeah.
And what we'd like to do is offer for you guys to call the number on the screen or click the QR code to set an appointment. We'd love to talk to you about helping you if you have concerns in this area or anything regarding your retirement decisions that need to be made. We'd love for you to come in.
Wonderful. Mark, Dale, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, we are going to take a quick commercial break, but again, we invite you to call the number on the bottom of your screen, 866-724-3893. More with Dale and Mark on Arkansas Money Talk right after this.
The work never seems to end until the day it finally does. After nearly a lifetime on the job, you should be rewarded for all the time you spent working. Whether that's crossing off items on your bucket list, learning a new passion, or rekindling the love of an old one. After all, life isn't over when you stop working. It's the start of an all-new chapter. The one where you're the writer and you get to choose how your story will go. A way to achieve that is by having a clear financial plan to sustain your golden years. The biggest fear most retirees have is if they'll have enough money to maintain the lifestyle they've always enjoyed. Having a plan to help protect you against the curveballs life often throws will help to maintain your lifestyle. Call today to get your free written financial plan so you may live every day to the fullest and enjoy the retirement of your dreams.
Welcome back to Arkansas Money Talk. I'm Kristen Oakley here with Dale Colclazier and Mark Smalling of Retire Path Wealth. We are talking today about the question that keeps most people up at night: will I outlive my money? I know that's a huge fear, and you see this a lot when folks come in to meet with you. So I'm curious, what are some ways that you have found to work well for people to make sure that they don't outlive their money?
Well, Kristen, I appreciate that question, because that is the most common thing that occurs, especially in the last 2 years, since we've seen so much market volatility since 2020, a lot of upheaval. People made bad decisions in March of 2020 of pulling their money out of the market because of due to fear of knowing, hey, I'm planning to retire in the next 2 years if I can't afford to lose anything else.
Right.
And by not having a plan in place, they made bad decisions, did not catch that next market move that would have pushed their dollars back up well beyond where they had started from. And then we get into 2022 where we have another year where we have negative market turns. They think they've gone into a position of safety by moving their money to bonds, which is the traditional asset allocation
The more
theory.
conservative, right?
To be more conservative, and yet that accounts, those assets still lose 16%. So now they're looking at the process of moving into retirement with literally 15% less money than they thought they would have been going because they expected to make 10, not lose 15 that year.
Right.
And so it's even more concerning of what if this happens again?
Exactly.
Or what if it doesn't continue? So there are so many times that in building your Retire Path plan, we have the ability to put in something that has a predictable income base, and we start with that and then build a portfolio around that to match what the plan tells us we need to do.
For sure. Well, and I know what you're alluding to is this risk that we refer to in this space as sequence of returns.
That's correct.
Risk. So explain why that is so detrimental to someone to take those big losses right at the beginning of retirement.
Right. And kind of the point of it is there's these terminologies that we've heard that are supposed to be our friends as we've moved through the accumulation phase. It's dollar cost averaging.
Right.
It's sequence of return, much less known because it's not something the general market wants to talk about because asset allocation is supposed to fix all that fear. But the reality of it is when we're no longer accumulating and adding dollars, dollar cost averaging can actually be our enemy, not our advantage. The same thing with sequence of returns. If I have a scenario where I lose substantial amounts of money in my portfolio in the early years, I'm still having to take income. The bills still have to get paid every month, and that money has to come out of that. We need a place that has stable, predictable growth that we can pull the income from in those years, especially when markets are down, so that we have time for our other portfolio to recover.
To recover, for sure. Because time is not on our side at that point, right? That's the difference between the accumulation and the distribution phase.
That is one main factor to that. That's absolutely correct.
And you're not adding money to your accounts anymore.
Right.
You're just taking
generating
money.
income
You're
for
generating
yourself
income.
from those.
That is correct.
Absolutely.
And so, one of the things that's very important to utilize there are assets that have the ability to have what we refer to as contractually guaranteed principal protection.
Okay.
And simply due to the fact that, again, as I've already alluded to earlier, the drop in interest rates over especially the last 15 years and then a change now, the financial services industry has added many, many options that are available that offer that some type of principal protection to give people the surety that I will have the income I need next year or in years to come in my portfolio, regardless to what fluctuations in their portfolio do.
And I'm really glad you're bringing this up because I think a lot of folks want to make sure their money is going to be safe.
That's right.
We hear this word safe money, and especially what's happened so far in 2023, a lot of folks have been freaking out over the different bank collapses, and then now they're going, well, where can I go, not even just to get a decent return, but where can I go to protect my money? We don't want to just shove it under the mattress because we three know that's going broke safely, right?
That's
You're
right.
not even keeping up with inflation at that point. So where can one really find these safe money places?
Well, again, as I mentioned, there's lots of options that are available. There's lots of them that are available on the brokerage platform. Life insurance companies have always been the one that have offered those type of options as well. So sometimes something with an annuity type style of investment is a great fit for a piece of your portfolio, especially for income distribution.
Right.
That's when we begin to look and really rely on Social Security, pension benefits, things of that nature, just your traditional mailbox paycheck that's going to show up, and then let's find a place to supplement. The other is just simply taking advantage of the ups and downs in the market. When we have situations where we have really good return years, maybe we trim some of that excess off and set it aside to utilize for the next downturn. Everybody always considers that pot out there, a nest egg. Why don't we actually treat it like it is?
And that commitment to preserving it, right?
Yes.
That's right.
That's the important thing.
Well, and with this increased longevity, and we've talked about in episodes before about deferring our Social Security. That's where looking at all of these things together, these pieces together, and making sure that we take advantage of all of them and maximize the advantages of all of those. Because your Social Security benefits, in these uncertain times, that's the one certainty is that we have, if we defer that, we know we're going to have increases with that on an annual basis.
For sure. When you mentioned the word annuity, and I think it's important to highlight because a lot of folks hear that word and they're like, oh, I'm going to run, right?
Yeah,
Change the channel because annuities get a bad rap. But to your point, there's different types of annuities.
That's right.
And it's making sure that you're in the right kind for you, right?
That is right.
If it's appropriate for your situation.
Right, and I mean, it just comes down to the basis, again, of being a fiduciary, of making sure that you've explained every option available to the client
Right.
to give them the information they need to make the best decision for what suits their situation. And that can change over time as well. There's so many options that are available. We're talking about interest rates rising, and we begin to notice that the very short end of the curve is the one that has the best rates that are available today. And so just because I get into something today doesn't mean I'm going to be there for 2 or 3 years. I then always have the ability to get to another option later.
Absolutely. What have folks said to you when they've come in, maybe they've had this question, this concern of, am I going to outlive their money? And then they come in, they meet with you, and you're able to develop that plan. What is some of the feedback that you've gotten?
Well, oftentimes the first statement is how'd you do that?
Right.
Because so many people do not just go to the simple concept that retirement is no different than living. It is a money in, money out mathematical calculation. There's just other factors that have to be added into that. We can help figure out inflation. We can help figure out growth of a portfolio. We can help figure out taxes. And that's the beauty of utilizing a planner who is completely holistic, that understands how each of those areas affect one another. It's really upsetting many times when people come in and says, oh, well, my broker told me this and my CPA told me that. And it's like, well, what did one say when you told the other one? It's like,
Right.
well,
They're
they
not
don't talk to each other.
communicating, right?
Right.
They're not, working off the same page.
That's right. And so that's upsetting. And so we like the idea of being able to pool everything together and at least have a good solid working knowledge of how each of those categories work. We still want to pull those other advisors in because I tell clients all the time, my signature is not going to go on the bottom of your tax return, your CPA's is.
Yes.
So we want to make sure that they're on board, but we want to be working to the same end goal. And so what I would like to point out today is if you have are nearing retirement somewhere within 5 to 10 years, or you're already there and you're not sure what your cash flow is going to look like, and you're not completely confident that your written income plan is going to get you to the end of your days, please give us a call. Be happy to sit down with you. Would love the opportunity to work you through our 2-appointment process to give you the confidence that you will not run out of money.
Thank you, guys. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.